From the nation's capital, the McLaughlin Group, an unrehearsed program presenting inside opinions and forecasts on major issues of the day.
GE is proud to support the McLaughlin Group. GE. From satellites to medical systems, we bring good things to life.
Here's the moderator, John McLaughlin.
Issue 1, Phase 2, Ground War.
This we do know. Our cause is just, our cause is moral, our cause is right.
As for how long it will take, it's something that only God knows. Lots of blood will be shed. Lots of blood.
Okay, with regard to Saddam Hussein saying that he has met the best that the coalition has to offer, I would only say the best is yet to come.
Operation Desert Storm, Week 2, brought with it the war's first sustained ground fighting. On Wednesday, 50 Iraqi tanks and 1,500 soldiers surprised Allied troops by penetrating 6 miles into Saudi Arabia and taking the deserted coastal town of Khafji. A pitched battle ensued, described by U.S. personnel as hellacious. Meanwhile, 50 miles west of Khafji, U.S. Marines engaged Iraqi tanks. That fighting left 11 Marines dead and several Allied soldiers missing, including one American military woman. Over 300 Iraqis were killed and over 500 captured. Arno, you just returned from the Gulf Theater. In fact, we're going to see a picture of, there you are, the Desert Fox. Who is that Arab standing next to you right out of central casting?
He's a Saudi Arabian colonel from the Border Patrol.
When you were over there, you interviewed Turgut Özal, the president of Turkey.
We thought the war would be over in 5 days.
Well, he also downplayed terrifically the quality of the Iraqi soldier. But you've seen on television and you've read about the Iraqi soldiers' performance in Khafji. Do you
Those
think
were elite units, John. I came back with 9 Iraqi deserters the last day I was there, which incidentally was the same day the CBS crew disappeared 2 kilometers away from where I was, which I only discovered subsequently. But we brought back 9 deserters with this patrol, and they were a pretty sorry lot, and they were only getting a little bit of rice once a day. So I think it's a mixed bag, and there are about 800 deserters in Turkey right now and about 300 in Saudi Arabia.
But that wasn't the Revolutionary Guard or the
No,
Republican Guard.
of course not. But don't forget, blood means absolutely nothing. He's very much like Stalin. 1 death is a tragedy, 1 million deaths is a statistic, and that's the way Saddam thinks.
What are your impressions of the ground war?
John Arno still thinks that Saddam is this genius, this mastermind with all these tricks up his sleeve. I'll tell you one trick he has up his sleeve. Did you know that the Iraqi army, members of the Iraqi army, are not issued white underwear? And there's a reason for that. So they can't wave the flag of surrender. That's been a rule in the Iraqi army for some years now.
That's a useful piece of trivia, huh?
It's not trivia. That's a useful piece of information.
They can still turn those turrets around in the tank, though.
John, the fact is they're getting pounded. They're getting pounded from the air. American pilot called it a turkey shoot. And Saddam Hussein has made no headway on his 2 big aims to start
John,
to learn the U.S.
Fred is right in one respect. Conventional war, we're bound to win it. That is not what Saddam Hussein is fighting. He is a man who has taken on the greatest power in the history of mankind, 28-nation coalition, and he hunkered down under the greatest blow we could deliver, short of a nuclear blow, and came back and attacked the heart of Israel, which hasn't been done in 43 years.
Jack Jamon.
I like the white underwear part. When I was in the Army, they gave us olive drab underwear, but I don't remember they were worried about us surrendering particularly. I don't know. I think we are not... first of all, this ground action was really a pretty limited action, and compared to what it could be. And I think the determination of the coalition leaders to stay out of a prolonged or an intensive, wide-scale ground war is the smart thing to do, and they're doing it. Let me just make one point. What we don't understand, what we don't know is a point like Pat Buchanan made here a week or so ago. We don't know at what point the Iraqi troops may crack somewhere, and if they're not all religious fanatics, if that happens, the war could be over sooner than we expect.
Do you see this as a strategy on Saddam Hussein's part to try to suck the United States into a ground war?
Sure. He was down there. He was down there at the front, supposedly. At least his propaganda said that he was, which means that he's identifying himself with this operation. He wants to kill as many Americans as he can, as many Allied troops as he can, and last as long as he can, survive as long as he can. He doesn't care how many of his own people get killed in the process, in order to make this claim in the Arab world that he's the hero. And Arno made a very good point off camera before we started about how lousy the psychological warfare is on our side. He's broadcasting to the Arab world, trying to stir up trouble, and we're not making the point that his invasion of Kuwait was against all of Islamic law. I mean, we ought to be making that point to keep the Islamic fundamentalists on our side.
Well, they know that.
They don't. They don't.
They know that. Look, John, the main thing is he didn't lure the U.S. into a ground war. General Schwarzkopf said, look, he can move 100 miles into Saudi Arabia. That's fine, and we'll just pick them apart.
But wait a second, Fred. You see, what he's doing right now is trying to get us to speed up the timetable for the ground offensive, which we don't want to do.
But he's not succeeding.
But what he's doing is moving our troops around and Allied troops away from the areas where they were going to jump out for this ground offensive.
I take it you think that the ground war is inevitable.
I do not think the ground war is inevitable.
You think the air power can do it alone?
The air war is proceeding and succeeding beyond expectations.
There is a revitalization to the thinking that the air power can do it alone because of the immense impact of the B-52s, particularly around Basra.
Now, you've got two things going on here. You've got Colin Powell and the president saying to visitors at the White House that we're going to let the air war go and prove whether if an air war can win this thing, we're going to prove it.
2 weeks, 3 weeks, what are we talking? What's the time frame?
Well, I don't know what the time frame is, but then you've got these Arab diplomats who are visiting Washington and pleading for Bush to get on with it because they don't want
the Egyptian foreign minister was here just 2 days ago. He saw President Bush, he saw Jim Baker, and he was told the ground offensive would get rolling toward the end of February and would be wrapped up before the beginning of Ramadan on March 17th.
Last Tuesday, President Bush delivered his State of the Union address on Capitol Hill. About 2 hours before the speech, a curious joint communique was issued by the U.S. and the USSR to the State Department in Washington. The communique declared that hostilities in the Gulf would stop if Saddam Hussein made a, quote-unquote, unequivocal commitment to pull out of Kuwait and took, quote, immediate and concrete steps, unquote, to comply with UN resolutions. In addition, both the U.S. and the USSR agreed that if Saddam Hussein does withdraw, both superpowers would redouble efforts for a, quote, comprehensive settlement in the Middle East. The statement caused an uproar. Prime Minister Shamir in Jerusalem voiced an official grievance on TV saying, a political act that involves us, our fate, our future, was taken without consulting us, without even telling us beforehand. The White House is currently putting out the story that Secretary of State Baker had freelanced the statement, meaning that he had acted without the president's knowledge or consent. Chief of Staff John Sununu reportedly complained bitterly that Baker, quote, forgot the first rule of politics, unquote, which is not to upstage El Presidente. What's really going on here, Morton?
Baker did not mean to upstage the president. You saw that film of Besmirtnik reading the statement.
Right.
Now, that's where the plan fell apart. What the State Department just wanted to do was to post this thing on a bulletin board and have it ignored by everybody and let Besmirtnik take it off and read it to the Soviet press and have it made a big thing in the Soviet press.
Well, I read all that in the Washington Post.
Well, it's true.
I read all that in the Post.
Well, all right. You asked me the question, I give you the answer. Now, just a second. There was nothing new as to the linkage.
Wow.
Just a second. There's nothing new on linkage.
Okay.
There is nothing new. There is nothing new on the ceasefire.
Speaker Foley said there was a shift in emphasis in policy. One focuses on total and unconditional withdrawal, which is action, which is movement. The other says it focuses on attention. It says a commitment to withdraw. One is intention, the other is action.
Wait a second. Just 1 second. It was a vaguely new formulation of the methodology. What was new in this statement, just a second now, John, what was new is, on the second page of the statement, that the Russians are going to be cut in on the post-war planning. Now, that was new. And that's what Besmirtnik was supposed to take away and not talk about.
Is that offensive to the Israelis?
No, it's not.
The role of the Soviets in the post-war period.
What is offensive? That is not offensive to the Israelis. What is offensive to them is that they didn't get consulted in Israel.
I get to talk. I mean, I can't believe that you buy that story that the State Department is putting out. The idea that you have to be disingenuous beyond belief to believe that story about them not recognizing that language was inflammatory. I think what was happening here was Baker, who was often too clever by half, is playing both sides of this thing. He wanted to give the Russians something that they could trumpet, which they did. He figured they could tamp down the Israeli anger because the Israelis have been so cooperative. But the idea that this was just something we want to put on the bulletin board is laughable.
Wait a minute. Look, Baker may be wily, but he is not stupid, and this was stupid.
But Jack's exactly right. This was too clever by a half, and Baker has also gotten in trouble with a statement he's made saying the $9 billion that the Japanese are supposed to donate to Desert Storm will be used for military uses, has enraged the Japanese and jeopardized getting that money.
Arno?
John, it's absolutely meaningless because, as you know, Saddam Hussein has no intention of declaring that he's going to withdraw from Kuwait. And when he does withdraw, he's going to blow up every oil well in that country.
Did you take note that King Fahd and Mubarak in Riyadh uttered a similar statement to the joint superpower communique? And did you take note that there's diplomatic activity going on in Tehran with envoys from Yemen, from Iraq? In fact, the Iraqi envoy asked for the planes back from the Iranians. And the Iranians said, no thanks, the planes are staying here. But is there diplomatic activity,
Well,
do you
of course,
see?
there's always diplomatic activity. Otherwise, the diplomats would all be on vacation. But it's absolutely meaningless until we see the end of this ground offensive, which I guarantee is going to take place.
The problem, John, is the same.
Before Ramadan starts.
The same problem that's been true from the beginning. It all depends on Saddam Hussein pulling out of Kuwait. He doesn't want to even now.
You think it's possible that he wants a military victory in Cop G, something that he can crow about, to set the stage for a withdrawal?
John, no, you've been expecting a deal every other week, every minute, and it's not going to happen until he's beaten.
What's the scenario?
The scenario is that you mean our scenario? We're going to pound them.
No, the scenario that, yes, okay, we're going to pound them and pound them. The Revolutionary Guard's going to break, crack.
Right.
They're going to either depose him or he's going to flee.
And then when his life is threatened or his regime is threatened, then he may cut a deal, but not until.
So that leads into the exit question.
When he will withdraw eventually from Kuwait, he'll be forced to withdraw. He'll blow everything up. There are 380 oil wells there. They're all mined. And guess who's going to get the blame? President Bush, because the propaganda will be...
come on.
All right, that leads to the exit question.
I'm not saying this. I'm talking about the gullibility of the Arab man in the street or the masses of the third world.
They know better than that.
No, they do not.
That leads to the exit question. We are not clairvoyants, nor are we astrologers, but each week we ask this question, or we will ask this question, because the conditions change. What's your intuition as to how long this war is going to last now? From now on?
From now on, I said it'll be wrapped up by March 17th, which
That's
is
6 weeks.
Beginning of Ramadan, 6 weeks from now, and then after that there may
What do you
be some
say? By the way, Mubarak said 1 month today.
Mubarak told me, as you know, 2 weeks ago, it would be maximum of 10 days.
I know he did, and Turgot Ozal said the same thing to you. He was very short in his prediction.
Fewer.
Now he's changed it to a couple of months. What do you say?
As hard as I pressed Mubarak on it, he wouldn't give me a prediction. I'd say 5 weeks, but remember...
5 weeks from now. Now.
Yeah. Even you are going to recognize that Saddam Hussein isn't some clever guy. He's a klutz.
What do you say?
Well, unless there is some real crack in the Iraqi force, some break-off from Saddam Hussein, I think it's going to go every week, I think, a little longer. I'm now thinking it's going to be a couple of months anyway.
You do? What do you think?
I think their army is going to crack, and I would predict by the end of February.
I'm saying 1 month around March 1st. Issue 2, the State of the Union. President Bush's second State of the Union address lasted for 47 minutes. More than half of that time was devoted to domestic concerns, even though